Welcome to Global Insiders Podcast. I am Ryan, the Peripatetic One, bringing you information about opportunities relating to jobs, traveling, and any information that can elevate you to your rightful place in this thing called life. You can find more information and how-to methods on globalinsidersgroup.com. That is insiders with an S. And here is today's show. Hello, insiders. Welcome back to the show. This week I want to continue with Australia, and I'll be talking about how to work in Australia. Last week we covered how to study in Australia, so I hope you keep on doing what you are and enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you. So the first thing we have to look into is why I moved to Australia. Last week I spoke about several reasons, including the fact that they have a high employment rate and it's a fairly safe first world country. So for those reasons alone, I would think persons who are looking for employment would want to move to Australia. Of course, sometimes we have down periods in our lives and you just need a change of scene. And Australia is just as good as any. I mean, yes, it is very far away from places like America and England and so forth. But yes, it's also a very exciting country and a country that has a lot of life. And for those reasons, we think that Australia can also be an option, especially if you're a young person. When I say a young person, no disrespect to persons over the age of 35, but let's call young under the age of 35. I mean, you have so many things that you can do, and you kind of have a lot of time on your hands also. So let's just say if you're a young person, there are so many exciting things you could do, especially in terms of travel. So moving to Australia is definitely an option for you if you're under the age of 35. So let's dive in and look at some options that we actually have if we would like to move to Australia. So, first of all, if you want to work in Australia, you must get a visa. In order to live and work in Australia on a temporary or permanent basis, you will be required to apply for an appropriate visa. It can be divided into two categories. You have the skilled migration visa. These types of visa have been designed for foreign skilled workers who meet the other required criteria and having the skills needed by Australian labor market. So, I mean, the other criteria meaning, like, for example, you are not a dangerous person, you're not planning to do anything bad in Australia, you have decent morals, and so forth, as mentioned last week. And the second type of visa for workers, broad category, of course, is nominated or sponsored work visas. These particular categories of visa are for the individuals who meet the required criteria, as mentioned before. And of course, for this one, you must be selected by an employer. So a recognized Australian employer must want you to come to Australia, and or a territory or state authority. A government agency or a state territory also can nominate you to come to Australia. What are the requirements for these visas? Well, the requirements for working in Australia depends on the type of visa you're applying for, as mentioned before. However, a few general requirements are you must be fulfilled. You need to prove your efficiency in English by providing relevant certificates. Your nominated occupation must be in the relevant skilled occupation list, and you have the skilled occupation list, which you can easily Google for Australia, and you'll see the various skills that they need in their country. You have skills and experience for the occupation you are applying for. Your skills needed to be assessed by an assessing authority recognized in Australia. You will require to meet the health and character criteria as mentioned earlier. If you meet all the other criteria required by a particular visa type you are applying for. How to apply for a work visa in Australia? So first, let's do the skilled. If you are interested in applying for Australian skilled migrant visa, you need to submit the online EOI, and this stands for Expression of Interest on Skills Select. The Skills Select is the online system to receive and process applications for skilled migration in Australia. Your submitted profile in Skills Select will receive points for the details such as age, skills, education, language, proficiency, and things of that nature. If your profile gets selected, you may get the nomination for Australian state from an Australian state, territory, or employer to apply for the visa in Australia. Sponsored visas. You must be sponsored by a business in Australia in order to apply for this category of visa. However, your employer needs to be an approved sponsor. You can submit an application for a sponsored visa. Once your employer has lodged an application to nominate or sponsor you, you can lodge an application online for this visa, mentioning your nomination, TRN, transaction reference number, or application ID confirmed by your employer in Australia. But without a doubt, the easiest way to start working in Australia is to do a Visit Australia for Work visa, or otherwise a working holiday visa. If you want to visit Australia and work at the same time, you can take a working holiday in Australia. Work in Australia as a temporary or permanent resident. To work in Australia, you must have a valid visa with work rights. Take a working holiday in Australia. A working holiday visa allows you to work while you have a holiday in Australia. You will have the opportunity to share your culture, knowledge, and skills while discovering their country. Working holiday visa options. You may be eligible to apply for a working holiday visa if you want to work and holiday in Australia for up to a year. If you are a young person between the ages of 18 to 30 years old. If you hold a valid passport from an eligible country. And these countries are Belgium, Canada, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Hong Kong, Italy, Japan, Malta, Norway, Republic of Cyprus, Republic of Ireland, Republic of Korea, Sweden, Taiwan, the Netherlands, and finally, United Kingdom. So for these people can enter Australia on a holiday work visa, which is the easiest way to get it. However, don't be disheartened if you're not from one of these countries, because as mentioned before, you can always apply for the skilled visa position, which is not necessarily difficult. You just need to fulfill the requirements. And I will go into details about these right now. So, temporary work skilled visa, subclass 457. First, the application process. It starts with the employer. The employer nominates the vacant position. and apply for becoming a sponsor. Okay. By submitting application for a regular business sponsorship, discussing the labor deal. So they have to go to the government and apply to become a sponsor first, right? Step 2, the respective authorities assess the application lodged against specific criteria, which includes a genuine need of paid employee from overseas or other temporary worker within Australia. Salary to be paid in comparison to the local employees in the similar occupation, and minimum threshold, and approves the sponsorship. And step 3, employee accept the offer and apply for visa approval in their country of residence. Eligibility. First, the employee should be nominated for a position that falls within the scope of the skills needed list. And secondly, should have positive skill assessment for the nominated occupation from the relevant assessing authorities. And thirdly, they should meet registration and licensing formalities. Definitely should be functional in English, as stated earlier, because that is the language that is used. The benefits of this visa: you get to work in Australia for up to 4 years, and you can bring your family to work or study in Australia. Also, you can travel in and out of Australia as often as you want, so that is fantastic. You also have the temporary work short stay activity visa subclass 400. The prerequisites of this visa: you must be involved in the work which is short term and non-ongoing in nature. You need to be in Australia to do the work or participate in the activity. You must have sufficient funds to support your family and yourself. You have skills and attributes relevant to the work. You will not study a course in Australia that leads to a formal qualification. You have good moral conduct and health. Privileges of the visa: you get to stay in Australia for up to 3 months. You can bring your family along with you, and you can get engaged in short-term, highly specialized, non-ongoing work, or participate in non-ongoing cultural or social activities at the invitation of the Australian organization. Finally, let's do the most popular visa. The most popular visa for foreigners or persons wishing to migrate to Australia is the Skilled Independent Visa. This is subclass 189. Skilled Independent Visa is the most popular Australian visa among immigrants across the world. This visa has been designed for those skilled migrants. You don't have any sponsorship from the state, territory, employer, or family member in Australia. The selection for this visa is done solely based on your skills, experience, and profile score. Since it's a point-based visa, this visa offers permanent residency in Australia to you and your accompanying family members. So, how to apply? To apply for this visa, you first need to choose an occupation from the Skilled Occupation List, SOL, of Australia, and then submit this online at the expression of interest, so that's the EOI. If your profile is selected, you will get the invitation to apply for visa within a period of 60 days. Key requirement for subclass 189 visa or Skilled Independent Visa. 1. Choose an occupation that is on the list, as we mentioned earlier, that skilled occupation list. 2. Score at least 60 points based on the factors that they list on their test. So age, qualification, experience, English proficiency, and other such components. Okay. Number 3, be under the age of 50 years. So if you're over 50, I guess you can't be thinking about moving to Australia. So have positive skills assessment from a recognized assessing authority. Must get the appropriate English proficiency score if you don't qualify for it naturally. 6, submit an expression of interest. And 7, get the valid health and character certifications. There are several benefits to this visa, and the first one is you will get to live and work in Australia indefinitely with your family. Number 2, you can study full-time in Australia and at any grade of learning, whether it is school, graduate, postgraduate, or vocational education at domestic scholar rates. Oh, so that's really, really good, because they won't be overcharging you if you get this visa. Number 3, get subsidized health care. 4, get certain social security benefits and payments. And 5, apply for Australian citizenship after spending specific time in Australia. And number 6, sponsor a family member or permanent or temporary residency in Australia. So there you have it, guys. You have several ways that you can apply to move to Australia. I hope you find them helpful. Good luck. And please stay tuned for next week's episode, where I'll be interviewing an MMA fighter. Okay, I'll be interviewing an MMA fighter. So stay tuned for that. Take care and have a great week.
Thanks for listening today. I hope you are inspired. You can find more helpful and motivational material at globalinsidersgroup.com. That is, insiders with an S. You can also keep in touch at Global Insiders on Instagram. See you next time, but remember, you can be your own superhero. Bye.